Literally just as I pressed record.
Oh, fuck. Hi, guys.
G'day folks, Wren here, and it is time for my best books of 2023.
So then I don't have to watch the video.
Rude! So it was actually really hard for me to pick my top 10 books of 2023, mainly because I've been reading so much manga, and I've already done a best manga of 2023 video, so this list does not have any manga in it. But I did narrow it down to 10, and I do have 3 honourable mentions though. My honourable mentions, the first one is Cryptid Club by Sarah Anderson. This is a little like kind of comic, but like a webtoon that's been, put into physical format, and I'm obsessed. It's all about little cryptids doing some normal things, and it's hilarious and adorable, and my 2024 calendar is now Cryptid Club theme. Next up for honorable mentions is None of the Above by Travis Alabanza. This is a non-fiction, and it hits so hard because it's about being queer and especially about being gender diverse, because in the book Travis never really talks about what their particular, they haven't labeled themselves really, and to see their journey of kind of discovering their gender and how they would present themselves it really hit hard for me. But it was all written so beautifully. It's such a powerful book, and I really want more people to read it because it's a good time. Then another honorable mention is Cinderella by S.T. Lin. This is a Black trans fairy tale retelling, and it was absolutely the only Cinderella retelling I have ever enjoyed. And it was really short, but I wanted so much more of it because it was actually fascinating. Okay, now for the top 10. So starting at number 10, we have Neverlanders by Tom Taylor. I literally only read this a few weeks ago and it already made my top 10. This is a middle grade YA graphic novel, and it is kind of a Peter Pan retelling, but it is so good and so unique. I have never ever read a Peter Pan retelling like this, and I love me a Peter Pan retelling. This was about a bunch of kids that are homeless in the real world, and they've kind of formed this little found family together where they protect each other, and then this other kid joins them, and he like whisks them away to Neverland basically, because he was like, do you want a home? Do you want to be in a place where, you're protected and safe and you don't have to worry about all this kind of stuff? So he takes them to Neverland without really telling them that Neverland is in the midst of a war that they are now meant to fight in. But it's really cool because all of the kids get to choose this like special armor that then gives them powers to help them fight, which is really cool. And it still has that found family vibe to it. And like the fairies are so cool. Like Tinkerbell has like a shaved head and like piercings and tattoos, and like she swears constantly. It's so much fun. And I really loved like the whole story because there was this thing to do with adults and kids, and like that was kind of like the war aspect, but the art was also really good and all the characters are really good. I loved some of these characters. They were adorable. And like, if there are sequels to this, I am 1000% going to read them because it was such a fun time. Coming in at number 9 is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. Of course, this was going to be on my top 10 of the year. Like, it's queer and it's Ashley Herring Blake. And of course, everyone is obsessed with this book and this series for good reason. I don't read books physically very often, and I did with this one, and I had such an amazing time. I was putting in all of the tabs, and I was so hyped about it. And I did a buddy read of this with Kate from Library of Kate, and it was so much fun. So Delilah Green, it is a sapphic romance, and it's like, if you want to get like a trope, it's kind of like the sister's best friend. But the sisterly relationship is a bit strained, which also makes a really interesting dynamic. And then Claire, who is the love interest, she has a daughter, and so that relationship is also really interesting. And I love a single parent like romance. The thing I really love about Ashley Herring Blake is she finds a way to write these amazing stories that have such depth without you realizing how deeply emotional a book is, because it'll just hit you that like, oh, this is some serious stuff that's going on, but it's in such a fun kind of setting that, you know, you're not immediately traumatized by it. You might be traumatized later, but right now you're not. It was so fun because the characters were so interestingly flawed in a good way. So they each have their own kind of things going on, and then together they have the sweetest romance, some good steamy moments as well, but I think they really complemented each other really well. If you haven't read the book, please read it. It is a good time. You won't be disappointed. Coming in at number 8 is Garlic and the Vampire by Bree Paulson. This was kindly gifted to me by Sasha from Sash Reads, which thank you so much. And this is a graphic novel. This witch has put a kind of a spell on her garden. Some of the vegetables that she was growing are now sentient, and then they grow more of themselves. Yeah, so it's just this bunch of vegetables gardening. It's so wholesome. And then they think a vampire has moved in kind of next door, and they're all like, oh my gosh, you know, what do we do? It's a vampire, like that's so scary. And all of the vegetables are like, well, someone has to go investigate, you know, someone has to go and like hunt down the vampire. And then they all turn to garlic because of that whole, you know, vampires don't like garlic. So she's kind of forced to go and hunt down this vampire, but she's terrified. She goes and like meets this vampire and like they become friends, and it was so wholesome. She like finds herself throughout this little like mission that she's been forced to go on, and it was so sweet, and just the most wholesome cozy fantasy vibes for sure. And it was beautiful, so wonderfully written, and the art was really great. Coming in at number 7 is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is so emotional, so impactful and important, and makes you think. Also just like so wonderfully written, because Angie Thomas creates these characters that are real people, which is like my favorite thing, is when a character feels like an actual person and not like a character for a book. In this book, we are following Star, who was a teenager, and her friend was a victim of police violence, brutality, all the bad things. So he was shot by a police person, and it was because he was holding a comb, and it was awful. And this kind of sparks this whole like this drive within Star to figure out like her place in the world and what it means to be Black in America during this time. And it's just, the journey that she goes on is so hard. It really just, I don't have the words for it because it's such a powerful book. It took me a really long time to read this because I was scared. I was so scared of the subject matter, because it was like, this is going to be emotional. This is going to destroy me. And it did, but in a good way, because it's such an important topic that I think everyone needs to educate themselves about. I am very glad that I read this book, and like I read it in January, and I can still remember nearly everything, and I can remember the emotions that were going through me throughout this. But yeah, this was a phenomenal read, and it is definitely worth all of the hype that it gets. Coming in at number 6 is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is a book I really didn't think that I would like, because I feel like I didn't hear very many good reviews about it, and then I think I read it for a particular prompt and fell in love, because this is everything I want in a book, really. It has this kind of creepy overtone to everything. So this is about 3 sisters when one of them goes missing and the other 2 are trying to find out what happened to her. And it's a really messed up kind of book because it is a horror. I think it's a YA horror. There's something going on with these sisters. And when they were younger, they went missing for a little bit, and then they came back. And ever since they came back, they've been a little bit different. And so now that they're in like their late teens, early 20s. They have returned to the place where they originally went missing. Their search has led them to this place and trying to figure out, you know, what happened to them and why everything happened. Things that happen to these two sisters while trying to find their other sister, it's just weird. Like, it has the vibe of a decaying forest. That's just all the vibes that I want for all time. Just the dynamic between these sisters, very interesting and very, very complicated. There's also this really great bond between them as well, because it's like they have been isolated from kind of their peers because they went missing. So they kind of always have each other, even if they don't want to have each other. But it's also got some really good queer rep, because our main character, so the main sister that we're following, she is bisexual, and she does talk about that throughout the book. And then the other sister that we're following is a lesbian, so there's also that. Just the vibes, everyone, just the vibes. But it was really good. I don't understand why people don't like it, because I had such a fun time. This was such a fun time. All right, so now we're into the top 5. So coming in at number 5 is Sink by John Leese. This is a graphic novel. I randomly found this at my library, and I was intrigued by the cover and the fact that it is set in Glasgow, which was awesome, which is where my grandpa was born, which is really cool. So this is about this town in Glasgow that is a little messed up. So it's full of all the different types of criminals you could ever expect. And we kind of have potentially 5 like little stories in this volume. We're kind of following different criminals, because this is a horror comic and it gets very graphic, so be aware. But it's so interesting and so messed up in the best possible way. And my absolute favorite story was about Florence. She used to live in the town, and she was like almost like the mafia boss, if there was like a mafia there. She was the biggest, baddest boss. And then she moved away. And when she moved away, she actually transitioned. And then these 2 kids go and try and find her, because I think their father passed away, who was one of her friends or something. And they find her and they're like, you gotta come back, you gotta like get revenge, basically. And she was a bit reluctant, because, you know, now she's transitioned, she doesn't know, I mean, she knows what will happen if she goes back, but then she does go back. It's the best scene ever, because she comes back to town in like this red dress and heels, and she's all done up, and she goes into the bar where she used to like, you know, run the town. And all of like the sleazy guys are there, and they're all like chatting her up until they realize that she's trans, and then they start, you know, yelling abuse and all of the awful stuff. And then she absolutely beats the living daylights out of them. And it's just this, like, there's just pages of red, because it's just a bloody mess. But then at the end, she's like, you know, you call this a fight? Like, I didn't even have to take off my earrings. And I was like, yes, get it. Because she just does all of this in heels and a dress, and she's all still like perfectly done up, and everyone is like dead around her, because she's like, no, I will not take this transphobic bullshit. And it's amazing, and I am obsessed with Florence. She's the best. And it's also really cool that this is like an indie comic series. But I think if you're looking for a horror comic, pick this up. Okay, coming in at number 4 is Sensory, edited by Bex Ollerton. So this is another graphic novel comic. It's all about autism, written and drawn by autistic creators, which was just the most lovely thing. And there's 50 odd different little graphics in here. I think there's definitely something for everyone in this collection. No matter what kind of art style you're into, there's something for you, or what type of stories you like, there is something for you as well. But this isn't really like a fiction collection. It is about some of these people's experiences with their sensory needs, or how they are perceived by the world and how they fight back against that. But there was some really great little sections of like self-care for being autistic, and it was like, yes, you know, I definitely neglect a lot of my sensory needs, but it was a really great like resource, and you're like, okay, so this works for a lot of people, maybe it would work for me. You know, you felt seen because there's so many people that would experience similar things to you, and I was just going, oh my god, I experienced that and that and that and that, which I didn't think anyone else did. So it was really kind of comforting to know that, you're not alone. But I also think that if you aren't autistic, you could still read this and get a lot out of it. It's a really good way to understand all of the nuance that comes with being autistic. And I think I'm going to be reading this for the rest of my life, just continuously rereading, because there was always something different to be found in it. Highly, highly recommend more people read this because it's so good. Alright, coming in at number 3 is kind of 3 books, but basically the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. Yeah, I hear you over there. So in 2023, I read the first 3 books, and I was obsessed by the end of like the first chapter because they're annoyingly addictive. They're very entertaining and a little bit far-fetched, but also you are just like rooting for this main character, because it is about this woman who is a serial killer, and she is kind of getting revenge on all of the men that assaulted her when she was younger. And she ends up in a relationship with an FBI agent who is actually investigating her murders. So it's a really fun dynamic, and I'm obsessed with that main character because she's such a badass, and it's really interesting to see her inner thoughts of, she's been, this like cold-hearted person for so long because of what happened to her, and then she falls in love and she's like, wow, this is a strange feeling, and she's warming up a bit. And so it's really interesting to see her kind of battling with those emotions while also still absolutely destroying all these men. And that is the funnest time because I love me some really messed up, gory stuff, and she gives these guys exactly what they deserve. Like, I knew what this was about going into it, so I had prepared myself for all of the triggers. It was still graphic, and I think, if you do, if sexual assault is one of your triggers, be careful going into this, because there are definitely a few moments where she is remembering what happened to her, and it can get very graphic, so be aware of that. But it's such an entertaining series, and I know they might not be like the best written things, but you have the best time reading them. And if you like Criminal Minds, read it. That's what got me into it, because someone said it's just like Criminal Minds, which I love. So I gave it a go, and I was like, yes, I understand the Criminal Minds comparison there, because every chapter, I think it was, starts with like a quote, just like every episode of Criminal Minds would start with. And just the way the FBI guy and his team work together, you get the same kind of vibe of the BAU team in Criminal Minds. So it's a really, really fun dynamic. It's so good.
You're such a shit, because I now really want to read that, and I've been avoiding it this whole fucking time.
Yeah! So coming in at number 2 is 2 books, technically, because I could not choose between them. But that is The Monk and the Robot duology by Becky Chambers, which is a Psalm for the Wild Built and Crown for the something shy, or I'll have the images up there. You'll see what they say. But these were amazing. They are very much a cozy fantasy, and it's about this non-binary person, which is amazing. And they trained to be a tea monk, which is, it's kind of a mix between someone who makes tea, obviously, and a therapist. So people would come to this person and be like, they would talk about all of their issues that they were having at that time. And this tea monk would be like, they would obviously be listening, and they would be brewing a specific tea for that person that would kind of help them. And I thought that was such an interesting concept. And then this tea monk becomes one of the best, but they get to a point where they're like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, they feel like they've done all they can with being a tea monk. So they kind of take a step back. What they do is they go into the woods to find themselves, but they go a little bit off the beaten track, and they find a robot, because in this world, technology kind of isn't a thing anymore, because humans kind of abused that power. and a lot of the robots, they decided to leave the humans to their own devices because, yeah, humans, as they do, ruined everything. So the robots left them, and they've just been kind of in the woods for a few hundred years, I think it is. But then this person goes and sees a robot because this particular robot is kind of tasked with just checking in on humanity, you know, seeing how they're going. And so these two meet up and form this really cute, like, friendship, which I just love. They go traveling a little bit, you know, visit a lot of different villages and just experience new things and, you know, get to know all of the people that are there and get to know each other. And so that's kind of really all it's about. And in the second one, you know, they're still kind of doing that, but the tea monk has like brought the robot back to their family, and again, they're all getting to know each other and figure out if humanity is doing better or worse now that technology isn't, like, you know, a thing. But yeah, this series is just the, like, softest, sweetest duology that also really makes you think about things, because the fact that humans realized that they, like, abused all of the technology that they had available to them, like, ooh, that makes you think about things. Like, it just makes you want to, like, drink some tea and go sit in the woods and hopefully find a robot.
You know, so I picked up your Aussie accent gets so much stronger when you're filming.
Really? That's so odd. I didn't realize I was talking any differently.
Only very slightly, but enough that I was like, they sound way more Aussie.
Maybe that's why Max can't watch my videos. Because he always said, you sound so Australian in your videos. I was like, well, I am Australian, but okay. All right, then coming in at number 1 will not be a shock to anyone because I have not shut up about this book all year. And that is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Did you guess it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I couldn't remember the name of it, but I immediately thought dead rabbit mushrooms.
Yep.
I was like, that one.
Yep, that is the one. But this is a book I read in, like, what, January, and nothing has beaten it since. Because, like, shrooms.
Sorry.
Your reactions are amazing.
You're just getting real-time reactions to when I watch videos. Sorry, guys.
So this is a Fall of the House of Usher retelling, which I have not read, but now I really want to. But it's basically this person, again, a non-binary main character, who goes to visit their friend because I think they got a letter that said, you know, this sister was ill. And so they're like, okay, gotta go see them. So they arrive at this, like, mansion where a brother and sister are living, and the sister is very much ill and declining. But it's not like a typical kind of sickness. And the brother is trying his best to take care of her. You know, there's kind of nothing that he can do. And they stay at the house for a few days just to be with them. And weird stuff starts happening. There is a glowing lake that's a little bit sus, and you really hope you're not drinking that water. There are mysterious animals, mainly the rabbits. They're moving weirdly, they're not acting like normal rabbits, they just kind of stop and stare at you all the time. And then the woman that is sick, she's like not doing anything during the day, and then at nighttime she's like stumbling around the house. She's not speaking coherently, she's doing some really odd things during the night, and there's this film on her, like this almost like dust has like settled over her, and it's weird. It's just the creepiest vibes in a book. And, you know, the whole thing is that this person has to try and like save their friend, but it's hard to save someone from something that you don't super understand because it's the shrooms, or it's the best like shroom horror that ever lived. And that's why I love it so much, because I'm obsessed with shrooms. Oh, I'm not wearing my shroom earrings. But one of the things I also really loved about this, apart from the vibes, is our main character. They have this really interesting, it's like they're a warrior. So they take on particular pronouns because that is like kind of their occupation. And there's like different levels in their particular society that again denotes different pronouns. And their whole talk of what gender meant in their culture was amazing, and something that like I haven't seen before. and it was just like a really good main character to follow. They were very well written, and I think T. Kingfisher is an amazing writer. Like, everything flowed really well. The creepiness, like, it just stayed at creepy. It wasn't trying to be like a slasher or super like jump scare horror. It was just really unsettling vibes throughout the whole thing, which, like, it kept you on your toes. It kept you wanting to turn the page, being like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen next? And like, just a constant on the tip of your toes. Like, it was good vibes, very good vibes. This has definitely earned its place as my best book of 2023, and I cannot wait for the sequel that is coming out in 2024. But that'll be it for my best books of 2023. Let me know down below what your best of the year was, and did you like any of the ones that I did? Because I just always want more opportunities to talk about my favorite books. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!